So,
Oh, boy,
what about you?
Chebe, it was good. It
It
was
was
good.
good?
Can't complain. Chebe Kini, just Chebe Cole.
Really? What
Hmm.
did the weather do to you?
Um, it gave some nice, water for the crops and all that. It was good.
Did you eat some hot bakes with cocoa tea?
Yeah, man, big up Sawyer. Big up Sawyer.
Alright.
Big up Sawyer.
Well,
He-
that's
He's
good.
always locked on as well.
Really?
Hmm.
Oh, I do not know this
He
gentleman.
he resides up Church Street.
Oh,
He
okay.
normally sells, his bacon saltfish, cocoa teas on the weekends.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Maybe I
Mm.
know him by face.
Right, right.
Yeah. So this morning, let me say good morning to all our listeners from Connery, Soufriere, at the various workplaces, the market place, and I just want to say good morning to everyone. I trust that everyone had a wonderful and safe weekend, and all went well during the weekend. I know it's a weekend. That's the time most persons take time to relax, spend time with family,
Mm-hmm.
as well as do a little bit of fetting. But amongst all this fetting, we just want to remind you that we still have COVID around, and we want persons to adhere to the protocols, even if it's a relax a bit.
Mm-hmm.
We want persons to be mindful that to keep their social distancing at times where necessary, ensure that they continue wearing their mask, and continue hand washing and hand sanitizing as often as possible. I know a lot of persons have gone out of that regime, but we still have COVID. COVID is around. So be mindful of all of this. And don't forget for persons who are unvaccinated to try to come and get your vaccine for COVID. Right, Erlan?
If need be.
Well, I guess around that time, many of us are traveling.
Right.
And this time around, many of us need our COVID vaccine. So don't hesitate. I mean,
I don't know if it was, I heard, from you don't really need that anymore.
for some countries, but
Yes,
other
for some
countries you
countries.
need it.
But eventually they're going to take all of that out.
Really?
Hmm. COVID
Okay.
is something, it's like, it's still, I think it's the normal influenza. It has come
Really?
to, like, for real. That's
You've
how,
never had COVID before?
yeah, that's how people treat it. I've had it before. Of course, I lost my sense of taste,
Mm-hmm.
smell,
Mm-hmm.
of course, some joint pain. Yeah, that was some of the symptoms I had.
Really?
And some
Okay.
nasty headaches.
Okay. So
For
you had
true.
it really bad?
I had it for about I lost my sense of taste for about I feel 2 weeks.
Okay.
I couldn't take the smell of the food.
Mm.
Of course, the taste, I was just eating and
Just for eating
just for
sake.
eating sake. Serious. I don't know if you had it before, but persons might agree with me if they've been through that.
Mm-hmm. I've had it many times.
What? Many times?
Yeah.
Oh, so you like give it to me?
No, no, like I think that when I got it, you gave it to me, you Erland. But I've had the chills. I got the chills,
Oh.
and but I had a slight headache, but I didn't have body pain, but fatigue.
Mm.
I was so very tired, and one of the things
Mm-hmm.
I suffer with COVID is long COVID. So after you've fully recovered from COVID, I still feel that sometimes I have COVID because of the fatigue and
Mm-hmm.
everything else. So many people do suffer from long COVID, and I think we have spoke about long COVID
Mm-hmm.
before.
Mm-hmm.
Although you do not have you're not positive for COVID, but you still have some of the signs and symptoms of COVID lingering on.
Mm-hmm.
Some people experience hair loss. Even some people experience hair loss. I've heard
Wow.
a few people say that, and all of these things. So you have to be mindful of everything else and take necessary precautions, especially for our children. Although we adults seems to be suffering more than the children with COVID, and not necessarily,
Mm.
But precaution is better than cure, especially if you have elderly people at home or persons with underlying health conditions. Huh?
Mm-hmm.
Right, Erland?
Right.
So this
Hey, it's the
morning,
4th of July. You know what? That's a big day, 4th of July.
it's a very big day.
4th of
That's why they have
July.
all the sales online
Yeah,
and things
boy.
like
July
that.
4th, guys. Damn. Today's July 4th. Wow.
Really?
Yeah. Anyway,
I thought that the ultimate day would have been Emancipation Day and
well,
not July 4th.
I concur. I agree.
So this morning we want to speak about the hurricane season, and of course, every year we do mention about the hurricane season, and we want people to take heed of the hurricane season, and we want persons to start preparing from now. And by preparing, we mean making sure that you have things in place in the event that a hurricane comes along, or even a storm for that matter of fact. Now that we're suffering from heavy rains, I mean, a lot of persons realize that, I mean, their roof, their house, and other places around their yard needs a little bit of taking care of, and we want people to be mindful of all these things. Again, the hurricane season starts with from June 1st and ends November 30th. However, with climate change, I mean, we get elements of surprise all the time, and people need to be a little heads up when it comes to that. So, how do you plan ahead? Please, people, do a general cleaning of your house. What you do not need, there are bulky waste days. Go right ahead and use these bulky waste days now.
Every second Wednesday is in Soufriere.
Every second Wednesday is in Soufriere, right, Ulan?
Yeah.
So,
Right.
I mean, you do that. So bulky waste in Soufriere is every second Wednesday. I cannot remember for Choiseul and Connery's. But you can always call Solid Waste Management Authority and find out the days that they're actually coming to your community. And if you have bulky waste and you don't happen to see the bulky waste truck on that particular day, feel free to call Solid Waste, and the zonal officer is Mr. Davis Polion. You could always speak to him and he will guide you accordingly. So do a general cleaning of your house. Ensure that your roof is okay. Your roof guttering is not clustered with leaves or any debris for that matter of fact. Ensure that your windows and your doors are in good condition, no broken windows and so on. And in the event that you have these things, ensure that you have repaired them. Reason being, many times we wait on the day of the storm when you hear government say a hurricane is approaching, not government, but the Met Office. And persons quickly try to do everything in one day. That is not possible for a lot of us, because sometimes we get an element of surprise. So start looking around your house, start thinking of a plan to put in place for you and the family.
And another thing
And
again,
don't get me full hit.
nah. Another thing again, even those with trees.
Trees,
Yeah, you know,
overhanging trees.
right. Of course, you have your neighbors, you have your house as well. Just to avoid certain issues, problems. I think we should, and I like to use the word we should trim out the branches of the trees, because you wouldn't want it to actually damage somebody else's property, and then come to think of it, you're the one is going to be spending tons of money or loads of money you don't have in this tight guava season. You understand?
That is true. And let me just say that too, a lot of neighbors tend to be very, very difficult. They do not want the neighbor that is being affected to cut the overhanging branches, and it can cause a lot of disputes among neighbors. And that is one of the times you as a neighbor have to, I mean, put yourself in the person's situation. Um, it could be your pet tree that is currently bearing, but now that you're in the hurricane season, it's affecting the neighbor's roof or the neighbor's yard. You have to be mindful of all of these things. Just put yourself in the current situation that the person is in, and don't let it escalate into something where you have to call police, you have to call environmental health, you have to call NEMO, you have to call so many different agencies just to get that rectified, or the council. I mean, it is a time for that. So just be mindful when your neighbors approach you and ask you to cut the overhanging branches, and don't let it reach to a level where it is not a nice situation between you and your neighbor.
Another thing again, of course, we have a problem. Persons tend to litter. And now again, we're in the hurricane season, not just because we're in the hurricane season, but what I'm
Yes,
simply saying,
Ulan.
practice proper, of course,
Garbage
garbage disposal.
disposal.
All right, so you can't, when you litter, it clogs the drains. You understand? Now in a
Mm-hmm.
hurricane, again, it come pouring rain. What will happen?
Everything goes down to the sea, and even the when the drains are clogged,
Clogged. That's what I'm. Yeah.
you see all the water tend to go into people's yards and so on, and you get all kinds of things. So that's what happens. So you have to be mindful of that. And water damage can be very detrimental to somebody's foundation
Hmm.
also. So make sure you have good guttering around your home, and ensure that your guttering is free flowing into the main drains. All of these things you have to
Hmm.
be mindful of, and we want persons to understand these things. Sometimes it's difficult for elderly persons or persons that have disabilities, but I'm sure there are persons in the community that is willing to help, or organizations that can provide such assistance. Do not depend. I mean, I know a lot of people they are young, vibrant, and able, and they want to depend on agencies to come and do these things around their homes for them. If you can't do it, now is the time to do such, and do not depend on last minute to be calling people or calling these many of the tradesmen. And at that time is all tradesmen are busy doing what they have to do, and they're unable to take care of your small matter for you. Like Ulan said, it's the guava season. So who'll be against himself? If I get a big job compared to your small job, I'll quickly do the big job. And that's what it is. So plan ahead with your family. Ensure that there are all emergency numbers where all family members have access to these emergency numbers, as well as everybody's in the household, their contact number and so on. Because sometimes what happens is that the children, some siblings do not know parents' telephone numbers offhand and so on. So these are the things you have to be mindful that the children have access to the emergency numbers, as well as the 911 numbers and so on, so that everybody have access to everybody's cell phone number, as well as emergency numbers and so on. And prepare an emergency supply kit. You never know. Sometimes you can have the biggest wall house, the the nicest roof. I mean, the more updated roof. But after a storm, you never know what can happen. So you must always prepare an emergency kit, one with medical supply. Ensure that if you have all these things, you have a small kit and so on with all your medical supplies. Persons that have medication taking, ensure you always have an extra month of the medication, especially persons that are diabetic, hypertensive, you have cardiovascular diseases and everything else. Those persons that cannot do with their medication on a daily basis. If you know this is the hurricane season, you have 1 month supply. You should also have an extra month supply in the event that anything happens, because you cannot do without your medication, and these are things you have to do. um you have to know your emergency shelters, and your family members must know the emergency shelters. And I will mention a few of the emergency shelters in the Soufriere area. So for Canries, it is Canries Primary School, Canries Roman Catholic Church, Canries Seventh-day Adventist Church, Canries Parish Center, and Canries Community Center. So for those persons living in Canries, these are the emergency shelters for Canries. For Fongejac, it is the Fongejac Roman Catholic Church, Fongejac Primary School, Fongejac Parish Center, Fongejac Preschool, and Raymond's Disco. For Bouton, it's Bouton Combined School. The and they have some. That's Chateau Bel. For Chateau Bel, they have the Disco, and for Etangs, it's the Etangs Combined School. For Soufriere Town, the Roman Catholic Church, the primary school, the infant school, the Seventh-day Adventist Church, the Soufriere Comprehensive Secondary School, St. Isidore's Hall, and the Christ is the Answer Church at Fontbenier. And for Choiseul, Choiseul have a lot of communities, boy. River Dore is the Anglican Church and is the combined school. Lafag and the Mothers and Fathers Hall, River Dore. Lafag is the Mission Evangelical Church, the secondary school, and the Church of God Holiness. Roblo is the Adventist Church and the Roblo Combined School. Both of them are located in Dibrel, by the way. Choiseul Village is the Roman Catholic Church, Reunion Primary, Reunion Enrichment Center, Reunion Pentecostal, and Why Wonder Disco. Victoria is the Roman Catholic Church, Victoria Seventh-day Adventist, and Cool Joint Disco. And Margouche is the Margouche Combined School. Duga is the Combined School and the Vibration Disco. And Delse is the Combined School. And Jacques Dance Hall, that's in Delse. And La Pointe is the Pentecostal Church. 99 Disco in Ravino. And in Lamas, it's the Lamas Community Center. So these are the how do you call it? The
Emergency shelters.
emergency shelters for these communities. You can always verify with Nemo if things have changed, because in looking at this list, some of them might be in renovation and so on. So all of these things come into play. So
Miss Wilson, you
yeah.
mentioned about of emergency shelters and of course all that. What's about finance wise in terms of preparing, a little finance, a little emergency fund? Because already, like I been mentioned a while ago, things hard cover season, but in a hurricane season, almost anything is likely to happen. Things are unpredictable.
So that is why we're asking persons. I would have gotten to that stage, Ulan. It's the hurricane season. Everything tends to be expensive, and canned foods now are very expensive. I think the last I heard, a tin of corn beef was $11 already.
It's hearty.
Yeah, well, I'm not a fan of corned beef, so so it's the hurricane season. The hurricane season is from June to November. So if you do groceries every fortnight or every month, I mean, you put aside something. You buy at least one or two items into that fund, into that grocery list. So, for example, you can have a special box in the house, a special container, or what you might say, and say that this is, I mean, in the event of an emergency or hurricane or storm or what it is. So every fortnight, you buy at least two canned stuff, or you buy a packet of crackers, or you buy maybe a tin of milk, or you buy stuff that you will need, that will last, or you decide
Non-perishable goods.
non-perishable goods, and or you buy at least a case of water or half a case of water, whatever you can afford, because by the time you hear a storm, you do not want to come across panic buying, and the supermarkets have so many people that you cannot access the
Or
supermarket,
they're closed.
or they're even closed, like Ulan is saying. So if every time you go and shop and you put something, and you speak to the family about it, because sometimes when you have other family members, they tend to waste things because they see things, or they tend, by the time you have to check yourself, you have to monitor the goods that you put aside for that purpose. These things happen in the family. So you have to tend to secure it if you have that issue, you secure it in a place where nobody will have access to it, only in case of an emergency and so on.
Miss Wilson, and it's not just that in terms of non-perishable and food. Sometimes, God forbid, say you know home, of course, your roof, your roof can actually get blown away. Right? God forbid, but you never know. Okay, sometimes the emergency shelter are packed up already.
That is true.
You understand? So you might need a little cash on hand, so you can, if it's a guest house, you can get, or some kind of property you can rent out just maybe for a week or two, because you have to get back on your feet.
Alan, remember as a child growing up, our parents always say, ou toujours ni pou di la han kay la pou si an ka ou maladi. And I think growing up, a lot of people still have that same notion. I don't know if it still happens among the younger generation, but you must always have some cash at hand in case of an emergency. And that is something that has always been what it is. I know for our culture, I'm not sure if it has disappeared, at least some emergency funds. So if you know you will not have access to the ATM around a storm or so on, because by the time everybody access these funds, you have nothing left, especially the day before or the night before. So it's always wise to have an emergency fund at home. You set the limit you can afford for your emergency fund. um and it's something that should always be there in the house, not even for only for the hurricane season, but it's something that should be at home all the time if in case of a medical emergency and so on. I think that's how I know it. I do not know for other people, and that's a fund that you don't dig in or always go in once you feel broke or
Or
something.
you
It's just
or sometimes some of them spend thrift.
yes. So that is something that is always there in the house. I know some people have their maximum limit and their minimum limit, or how much they tend to keep in the house. But especially if you have children at home, you must have emergency fund at home, and you must have, especially elderly people, or even for yourself, because you never know when you fall sick, you'll not have time to go in the emergency or hospital, emergency room or the hospital with no money. You must have money, and it's not every time your card will work.
True.
So you must always have money at hand, and that in itself, especially for the hurricane season, is of utmost importance to at least have some cash in hands. Not only for if your roof is going to, but you never know what can happen, and you
Miss
need the
Wilson,
money.
while we on that topic, talking about finance and all that, persons I know kind of tight money wise. Hence the reason you have persons with free jobs, and again, a hurricane season we're talking about, guys. That's what we're talking about. Of course, persons have their house, their properties, and all that. The insurance policies.
Oh, well, since I don't work for the insurance company, we'll have to bring somebody that works with the insurance companies with us.
No,
Of course, some people have house insurance.
They need to review the policies and make sure that because anything is likely to
Very
happen.
much so, Ulan, because a lot of people, they have not fully understood their insurance policy, and it's after the fact that when they go out to claim, that's the time they're telling them that they're not insured for certain things. And was it last year or year before, we had who was there with us? We had a guest speaker, and they spoke about that also. I cannot remember exactly what we
Well, we
spoke
have so many
about.
guests coming through here, boy.
you know but then, yes, so if you have an insurance policy, and rightfully so, Erland, especially in the hurricane season, find out what you're covered for underneath the hurricane season, as well as your vehicle too, Erland. Because a lot of people, I learned that for vehicle insurance, if you don't take perils or whatever they call it, that means if a tree fall on your vehicle, on your windscreen, you will not get any monies for it, because you never took anything for it. So not only for your house, but also for your vehicle, find out exactly what your insurance is covering, especially during the hurricane season. So you know that you're covered for this, you're not covered for that, and in that way you know what to expect if anything happens to your property or your personal
Now I like that.
belongings.
Now come to think of it, one thing persons, well, they normally say to persons, like persons need to take inventory in regards to their documents, their land property, all them kind of things. So elaborate some more on that.
So one of the things they're asking you to do is to ensure that you secure all your important documents, like educational certificates, your land documents, your land deeds, your land register, your medical book, and a
Marriage certificate,
marriage
birth
certificate,
certificate, them
all
kind
of these
right.
things. So it's wise that they're asking you to put it in a Ziploc bag, and then secure it in a place where it will not get water damage or something. Many people use more than one Ziploc bag. Many people, they use Ziploc bag plus they tie it in other bags again. So it's always wise to secure these documents and ensure that these documents are in a safe place. I mean, during a storm, you don't know where is safe.
True.
But at the same time, you do not want these documents to get any damage and so on.
I love that. You talking about being safe and all that. There's persons, they live in low-lying areas, places that's prone to landslide, and of course
Flooding.
flooding. They might not have an evacuation plan. So can you actually tell us more or get, go in depth with it?
So these persons living in these low-lying areas, especially the floodplain areas and so on, many times when there are heavy rains or anything of that sort, there are certain organizations that do provide assistance, as well as, NEMO do caution these people, because in every community there are persons that work with NEMO in these communities, and then they will, um, advise people on what to do, especially if we know that we're going to get a lot of rains, and there might be a possibility of flooding. So these communities, let's say Denry, for example, always gets flooding and so on. Denry Village. So these persons know exactly what they should do. I mean, once they see the water level, they have everything supposed to be set up and ready to move. However, one of the things persons tend not to do, and it happens all the time, they know of the evacuation plan. They know where is the next emergency shelter. They know what foods they're supposed to carry, because these people have been in the communities for such a long time. But some people, because of negligence, and some persons refuse to leave their homes. They don't want to leave their homes because of, theft, looting, and all these business places looting and so on, and they tend to
So true.
stay.
So true.
So an evacuation plan, I know most persons have an evacuation plan. I mean, you had a warning out there from NEMO. They tell you it's time to move. You should be able to move. And that's one of the things that, or you have the food in place. If you know that you packaging your food for at least 1 week. If you have babies, you have diapers and milk for that child for at least 1 week. You have all your personal documents in Ziploc bags or in waterproof containers and so on, and you move. But some people, a lot of persons don't tend to do that, and that's what happens, and so on. So another thing we must think about is our power sources, our flashlights, extra batteries, and so on. I know a lot of people rely on their phones, but your phone is not always all that reliable when it comes to
And of course,
lighting and so on. So we want you to be mindful of that. At least a flashlight and extra batteries do come in handy.
and I know persons normally, well, right now that's what's trending, power station, where you charge, because around hurricane season your phone should be always 100, because you never know in terms of an emergency.
Mm-hmm.
You never know. Although at times you have the service providers go out, you never know. Sometimes a lightning strike or can mess up things. But at least
That's true.
your phone have to be in charge, like powered up.
Very much so,
Okay, and
Erland.
of course, just in case they take electricity, with persons need to be very careful, as well in regards to candles. Candles, or around that time, somebody have a little
Or
candle
your
or
lamp.
a lump. You
A lot of
know,
people tend to think that lamps are out of style, but you will be surprised how far a lamp can go.
bruv, that's gonna last for a couple of years. You put in a little what? You haven't put in a gallon of
K oil,
kerosene in
yeah.
that, and you good to go.
It works
That will burn up
well.
until the whole year.
That is true. So, um, Erland, many people tend to, um, I remember, was it last year? Last year, um, many people, when they heard that a storm is approaching or a hurricane is approaching, many people did go out there and prepare themselves. I saw it with my own two eyes. But some people really, really don't take heed. And another thing I want people to be mindful of, even if you heard that a hurricane is coming or a storm is coming and it passed our country, that means we're not hit by much damages or nothing really happened, and then it happens once, twice, don't be negligent and say, okay, that I will not go the next time, because every time they're telling you, oh, a hurricane is coming or a storm is coming, and nothing never
I
happens.
like you bring that up. I love
So
it.
you have to be mindful of all these things that, sometimes we're lucky that nothing happens at the time, but that doesn't mean the day that you're not prepared, that doesn't mean that nothing will happen on that day. And we're hoping that we're hoping that persons can come in, can, do what they have to do, and on that particular time when they have a hurricane or a storm watch, or, the notices are out there to take certain precautionary measures. Another thing I want to speak about is, now that we're having heavy rains and so on, I want persons to be mindful. um, don't allow their children to play in the flood waters,
Ah,
and and or you as adults to walk in these floodwaters barefooted, or tend to, play in these floodwaters and say, okay, the water coming out clean and so on. I want persons to be mindful. You can still get vector-borne
true,
diseases
true.
like leptospirosis and so on. You have to be mindful of all these things. And if there are water shortages in your community and you harvest in rainwater, please ensure that you boil the water. At least boil the water and ensure that you don't do any of these things. Um, we have to, I know there are certain times within our own culture we tend to believe that, you drinking the rainwater, it's fresh and so on, but the rainwater can be contaminated, and you have to be mindful of all these things, especially um walking in these flood waters and so on. Just be mindful of all these things that can happen to you and so on. And for our farmers, we were saying to you, take precautionary measures. Take precautionary measures. Do not go out there. If there is a warning out there, do not go out there looking for your animals or going out in the garden and so on. We have lost a lot of our loved ones like that, and we do not want it to continue. So if there is a storm watch or hurricane um, watch out there, and you are cautioned not to venture out, please take heed. Now, Erland spoke a little bit about the evacuation plan and so on, and what you can do when you're at home is to ensure that you cover all your doors and windows. And many of us have a lot of windows at home, and they are glass windows. So that's one of the things we have to remember to do, and ensure that all these things are well protected and so on. And in the event that you have your home, always choose a room where all of you can, if in case your roof flies out or the house have any damages, there must be a room designated where all family members can stay in that room. Many of us have,
It's like a panic room.
yeah, many of us have our bathroom. Our bathroom normally have concrete kind of on top rather than the galvanized. Some persons where you have the water tanks, you can use that room in particular, because if in case your roof fly out, that's the only room that is well, and so on, and this kind of stuff. So you need to do these things. And even if, for example, the eye of the hurricane or the storm is just above us and everything is out in the calm, do not go out until they give you the all clear. I know a lot of people like to do that.
True. Go and see, like, like what get damaged, what happened over there, what, yeah. For true, for true.
So you have to
Damage
be
assessment.
Yes. You're not working for Nemo. You're not working for the government of St. Lucia. You're not working for one of the government agencies. What are you going to do and look at damages for? That's the time for you to stay in, because they have not given the all clear. And that is even for public servants like myself too. And many times you are called upon. They have not given the all clear. They have not given the all clear, and you still call upon to go and do damage assessments. These are things that always happens, even to us as public servants, and that's one of the things we have to be mindful of. You're not given the all clear, do not go out there. Sometimes the eye is just above us, and there is more out there to come. All of these things I want persons to be mindful of, and try as much as possible. Try as much as possible to keep calm, do what you're supposed to do as a family, and ensure that things are now in place to take care of your house and your family. I mean, during a storm or during a hurricane. So, having said that, um, we're hoping that persons can now start the ball rolling at their homes, put their emergency plan or evacuation plan in place, know which emergency shelter that is closest to you, ensure that each family member know their role in everything if in case something happens. If you have elderly people at home, children, make sure that everything is in place for them. Do not wait last minute when there is a warning out there that you will rush to the supermarket or rush to the grocery shops or rush to the small shops around and to do these things.
Another thing I want to highlight, as you're talking about the rush to the supermarket, listen to me, yeah. I know hurricane season, a lot of people persons want, non-perishable goods and of course the basic necessities. But buy what you're willing to use. Don't buy things like, like you want to buy 40 pounds of sugar and you know you're going to other person depriving other persons from getting at least a pound
That's
or
true.
half a pound. You understand me? I'm telling you.
Especially these days
You
at the
buying
supermarket.
crackers. You buying crackers and buy if it's 6 pack because know your family, the size of your family. So do the ratio, But don't buy 49 packs and you know you are going to use you depriving other persons from getting not even 1 pack or half a pack in the supermarket.
Well, yeah, when you start buying, it's who have money. If you don't have money, you stick in that.
While I do understand that, but listen to me, why buy all that you know you'll not use it, even after the hurricane season? Understand? Sometimes because everything comes with an expiration date.
Yes, that's true.
So why deprive somebody else from buying, a little pack for themselves?
Well, at that time, people don't really consider that.
You must have empathy.
No, okay.
You gotta have empathy.
All right. So that is why we're asking you to start buying the one packet from now. So when the time comes, you will not feel that kind of the same thing that we're speaking about. Some people can actually get all what they want while you will end up not having getting anything that you actually need. You understand? But if you start buying now every week or every fortnight or every month, you buy a few things and you put there. Then when that time comes, you might not suffer all that great loss because the businessman will not hear. Although now many businesses tell you can only have one packet of something or 5 pounds of something and that's it. Even if you go to the cashier with 20 pounds, they don't give it to you. However, in times like these, many people are privileges is who you know at the time, your contacts to. Because if I want a whole box of crackers, I might be able to get the whole box of crackers, whereas you might not even get half a packet.
You understand?
So all of these things are things that normally happen. So if you start buying from now, you shouldn't have that problem and so on. Another thing is sometimes after the storm or even before the storm, there are NEMO representatives that normally come around and find out with proper identification, because these days you have to be so very careful to come and assess around your homes and so on. So sometimes it's good to be accommodative because you never know what might happen to your home. And sometimes after the storm, when everything happens, you complain that nobody came to your home to see your damages and so on. So all of these things you have to be mindful of during the hurricane season.
I agree, but persons have to be very careful
That's
because you
what we
have
said.
volleys coming out there dressed in Nemo and saying,
That's why I said with
proper
identification.
identification. Make sure they show your proper identification before you allow them on your property to make some assessments.
Or you can call to find out.
Yes.
Because most
for
times,
reproofing, yes.
most times it happens, that you can always know who's the NEMO representative in your community and so on. There is always that group there. I think last year we had a gentleman from NEMO who came to speak, right? After the death of
Miss Simone Mondesi.
Yes, and we had someone So you can
I know Placid. I think
Placid,
Placid
yeah,
is part of that as
and
well.
Mr. Lamontagne.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So all of these you have to be mindful of and so on. So you know the persons in the community that's responsible for the NEMO groups, and that's the ideal time for persons to, know who is part of their NEMO group in their community and so on.
And next time that show, we should already bring a representative from Nemo to enhance. That
Well,
would be
next time,
wonderful. Yeah,
next
because
time around,
because you
last
have
year we had the fireman,
yes, because
I
the
forget
hurricane
his
season is
name.
up until November 30th, right? So we have
Yes,
ample time. We still have ample
we
time.
still have
We
time.
have ample time.
We still have time, so hopefully by then we can actually get somebody from Nemo
Hey,
and
wow,
do what
time
we
up
have to do.
already. Wow.
Yes, Ulan, we started late,
Yeah, but
Ulan.
at least we started late, but we disseminated a lot of information out there.
Yes, we did.
Hmm.
Um, Let me just say, I know many of you are been hearing about monkeypox, and a lot of you have concerns about monkeypox. But hopefully, in the next few shows, I'm trying to get somebody to come and speak about monkeypox and to educate the public about monkeypox and the transmission and so on.
Susan, why every time I see an ad for monkeypox, it's always a black person?
That's true. I've not observed
You
that.
see, most times you come here, if you well check my computer on my page, I have factual things alone. My page is, my computer is always, my screen is always filled with information.
Um.
Every
Oh,
time.
but when
Even on Loop Solution, for solution time, I always see a black person.
but we
Depicting
but no
depicting monkeypox.
but we only dealing with the black community for us,
Okay, so we have
for
to
our
do.
own people.
Okay, all right, okay, cool.
I
Yeah.
mean, we have
She
mixed
cushion it.
race.
She cushion it real nice, good.
We have mixed race. So if we're talking about, for example, we want to talk about adherence or something, we always put a dark skinned
Okay,
individual.
let's
Yes,
do that.
we're referring to our own
Yeah, okay, cool.
people.
Okay, cool.
Because I saw an ad once. It was for a boat ride, and they had a Chinese woman, and I had to say, but we don't have no Chinese woman in Saint Lucia. Why you were?
I have a cousin that's Chinese.
So you have to put a dark skin, and I can't look at a Chinese woman with that kind of figure. That's not a Chinese woman's figure. That's a black woman's figure. So I had to tell the person, but that's not for me. That's for Chinese people. So that is why sometimes you put a dark skinned person. To relate to our very own. On a more serious note.
I didn't view it from that perspective. But since you said that, okay.
From on a more serious note, sometimes you have to appeal to your audience, and we are mostly dark skinned individuals in Saint Lucia. So you appeal to your very own people, and that's your target group is dark skinned individuals and not necessarily light skin.
Okay, auntie.
And so on. So that is why most probably you might see dark skin, especially if it's coming from the Ministry of Health and not these international agencies. If you tell me that international agencies, then that would be a different ball game. So again, let me say thank you to all our listeners out there. I would like to say a special hello to MNC staff. Good morning, Everista, Miss B, and everybody else. I know you'll have me on lock and always listening. Um, Let me just say good morning to Glenda over at the post office. She's always asking me to give her a holler. And thanks for listening.
Good morning to you guys. Big up Robbie. Big up all the guys working over at the post office. Respect and manners for true.
Oh yeah, they listen. Oh, I never knew that. And all our overseas listeners, don't forget our very own. Thank you for listening to our show. Erland, we didn't have anybody call in today, but the other thing we want persons to do, if there are any topics that they really want to hear about, I know the last time Erland said about one topic. I've already tried to make arrangements to get at least a doctor to come and speak about that topic with us. So if there are any topics that you are eager to hear about and so on, feel free to let us know, and we can always get an expert in the field to come and speak to you about it.
You can send a message via WhatsApp at 730-5388 or even Gmail. So you can just send us, soufriere@gmail.com.
Yeah, we would really appreciate it. Again, have a wonderful day, everybody. Stay safe. I know the weather has been, but at the end of the day, I think we can make it out. Um, Take care, everyone.
Au revoir. That's how you say it.
Yes,
Au revoir.
au revoir.
Bye. Enjoy. Have yourself a blessed and productive Monday. Likewise, the week.
Casualty 911, 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. with the consultant. Health is not merely the absence of diseases, it is your social, economic, physical, spiritual, and mental well being. Just imagine you on 88.5 Soufriere FM talking, questioning, sharing your experience, information, education, entertainment, news,